we're starting to really focus in on trying to get into the half guard, something that we're doing a whole lot of here. We're gonna start out by using side-to-side movement to put pressure on our opponent's guard. It's hard to put exhausting type pressure when you just go into the guard. What a nice sort of concept or idea to do is get moving side to side, get them high legging, get them moving, and then make your way into the guard after that. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna come out, we're gonna grip up on his shins, and we're gonna force, does that hurt your knee? We're gonna force his heels in towards his butt, and then slightly pull his hip off the mat. So we're gonna start to do this. All right, so we're gonna start to come in here, and we move to a position like this. And then we're gonna just start to move. And we're gonna show sidestepping side to side, and then we're gonna pick a side, and we're gonna spin him. And we're gonna start to get to here. As I start to try and come in, he's gonna high leg. As he starts to high leg, I'm just gonna bat his legs down, and I'm gonna take a quick step to the other side. I'm gonna move back over here. As he takes the high leg, I'm gonna bat his legs down. We're gonna move back over here. Maybe he managed to get back in front of me, that's fine. I'm gonna go back to here, put him back out the side. He starts to high leg, I move out of the way. We play this game of just going side to side. So not overly technical. We're looking at the idea of getting some mid shin grips and compressing him, starting to get out to an angle. As he starts to bring his legs in, moving ourselves back out of the way. He brings his legs in. Don't get in the habit of throwing him and pulling him into the guard. So make sure that you get your leg out of the way. We can move around side to side, start to put some heat on his guard. And then eventually when we settle in here, he's probably slightly exhausted depending on how long you do that for. Let's get a partner, let's give it a go. Let's have a think about this. If I wanted to lift his feet up and start to go into stack passes, I go with grips underneath. As a general rule, grips underneath are good for him as far as retention is concerned. He's got his feet in the top position here. It's hard for me to force him into Torreando type situations, right? So make sure your grips come in on top. He's gonna want to pummel his feet to the top position. And your job is to try and make sure that you keep these compressed and we don't allow him easily to put our hands on top. You take just grips any old position and he starts to win the top foot position. This is good for him, not so good for you. I would only take grips underneath if I was looking at trying to stack this guy and get in underneath or put him up into plow type positions. But we're just working on getting moving here today. Now, we're gonna do this. We're gonna compress. We're gonna start to show him movement one direction so that he starts to put his defenses over this way, which makes a lot of sense. And as he starts to do this, we're then gonna throw his legs by and we're gonna go back the other direction. So all we're gonna do is start to go one direction and then we're gonna overextend him and put him back the other way. Pretty simple stuff. I start to go this way, he puts his defenses this way. Makes sense. If he leaves his knees at the ceiling, I easily flank him. So he'll start to want to point towards you here so that he can protect himself. So as you show some movement, we're gonna throw him down and then we can start to pin him on the other side. If you wanna add the extra details we looked at before, I start to move, I throw him by, he starts to come back in, I start to slide him by, start to come back in. This is how you'll make him tight. Let's give it a go. So what I said was we were going to start out with side to side movement, and I'm not even that worried about him hooking up into a guard of some type. That's fine, as long as I don't allow him to get going. As soon as I start to feel this, we're just going to crash into a half guard. So we're just going to crash inside the shoulder, inside the hip, thumb post the knee, and we're just going to fall ourselves down into a half guard. Now what we're going to start with today is that your partner wins the underhook battle. Now when he gets an underhook, it doesn't all happen all at once. He gets an underhook and then he starts to build into a better spot for him. Whether he propped or whether he just put me way overhead into a position where now he can start to go into scoops, lower leg shifts, maybe wrestle out on singles, whole bunch of things. Basically, he gets an underhook, he's in the driver's seat for a moment. So our immediate response is to try and shut this down before our head gets put up high. So some early stage defense is to retract your elbow back tight towards his rib line and put a thumb post in the armpit. Okay, this is very early stage defense. So I retract, thumb post, my head starts to try and get towards his elbow. The more my head goes towards his head, this is bad for me. So I'm trying to get towards the elbow, and you'll notice that just naturally crushes everything down. I want his underhook pinned down here against his ribs, and he wants his underhook right up high, flared open. So we go here, and I pin it down. My second hand is gonna come in here as a throat post or as a reverse crossface. But I need to wedge under his chin. So as he tries to put me overhead, there's a physical wedge underneath his chin, or physical wedge under his chin, okay? Something like this. Now from here, I'm just gonna run his hip down because the underhook doesn't do too much if he's not on his side. So we're gonna run his hips down. We're just gonna start to walk his hips down so we end up putting him flat. So from here, he tries to use the underhook, but everything's kind of wedged. Now we're gonna take our thumb post out and we're gonna pummel our elbow to the inside real estate. Don't try and pummel an underhook. He'll just turn back up on his side and he'll go back to work again. So your job, once you put him flat, is keep him flat, pummel an underhook. So even while he tries to lift his hand and go back to a high underhook, it's very hard. If I lift the pummel here, he puts me back into this position. So I go inside bicep tie and I just put my head over the far side like this. And then from here, I can start to work myself into an underhook. And then from here, we can go back into our half guard game. Okay, so we're starting with some early stage. We run ourselves down into a half guard, but he does a good preemptive job of taking an underhook. I take a thumb post, I take my head over this side, and I go throat post or reverse cross face. From here, I walk everything down, running his hips and his shoulders flat. I then get my elbow and I make as small a motion as I can. So my elbow comes up. Your partner will try to maintain the underhook to some degree. You're gonna get an inside bicep tie. Put your head down here on their armpit, punch your arm to the inside, and then we can start to go into half guard passing. Let's give it a go. What we're gonna deal with next is that as I start to come down here and crash into the half guard, he gets an underhook, he does a great job. He bumps me forward and he starts to forego the knee line and go to what we call a lower leg shift. Explain your shoulder instead of a propped elbow, please. He goes to what we call a lower leg shift. So he lets my knee go and he captures my lower leg. And you might think, well, maybe he doesn't know what he's doing. He should keep the knee line. But what he can do with the lower leg shift is he can externally rotate my lower leg. He can put pressure into the side of my knee. And he actually torques me in such a way that it's not very easy to turn into him anymore. So all of those things we just looked at trying to do, just turning in and killing the underhook and getting back down low, if you do that, you effectively load your ligaments in your own knee and you can really hurt yourself. Dominic DeCoco on the lounge over there blew someone's knee out at another gym about 6 months ago doing this exact move. He was just doing the lower leg shift, which is correct. He's not doing anything wrong. And the guy on top tried to aggressively turn back in, and you can see the torque it's putting through my knee. And already, like me just trying to square up, is putting torque through my knee. If he externally rotates at the same time, you can start to hurt ACLs and MCLs and a whole bunch of stuff. So don't just aggressively turn into your partner. All right, this is the first detail of this technique. Secondly, we don't want to stop him popping up behind us, so we're always going to put a whizzer in. The thumb post might not be effective now, we're just too high. The other thing is I don't really want to be on my knee here because he's going to go searching for a scoop. And once he pairs, just go with a scoop. Once he pairs a scoop with a lower leg shift, you're going to have to do some good stuff to get out of here. Like this is getting rough. So let's just start early. As he starts to punch himself into this lower leg shift, he takes an underhook and starts to put you high and go to here. We're going to immediately try this. We're going to see, we put a whizzer in, we're going to see whether we can drive off this leg before he makes a scoop, take our toe on the mat and extend our leg straight. So before he gets a good chance to totally turn my foot out and put serious pressure through my knee, I test straightening and turning and pointing my knee into his top hip. And then if I can do this, I'm going to try to run his hip down and take my outside knee into the near side hip and run him down into this 3/4 mount type position. I don't have to hold the whizzer anymore. Now we can let go and operate from here. So this is kind of early stage stuff. And then the later stage stuff we're going to do is just going to be pretty much trying to cause what we just did. So I come in here and he manages to do a good job. He just punches to here initially. I immediately try to pop up so I'm not caught on a knee. Okay, so I drive off the outside leg. I straighten and turn my knee into his hip, and then I run everything down into a position like this. So this is something, if you just watch anyone who's good at passing, as soon as you get in here and he starts to shift into here, I immediately try to run the hips down and we go to here. Suppo in his match with Gordon did a nice job of punching the underhook at one stage and started to come up on him, and Gordon won the top knee battle. So he won the top hip battle and then ran his hips back down. Okay, so let's give it a go. Thank you. If I could only show you one option, he hasn't scooped us yet. If I could only show you one option, definitely running the hip down is very good. Absolutely. And if you can do that early enough, that is the A game. But if it's too late for you to be able to get back to that position, what we're gonna do is a big back step. So not a back step into his legs, just a big back step. So he comes down here and he starts to get a good lower leg shift. So he's got a tight waist and he's got some, some pressure running through my knee. So I feel like I can't even get my knee off the mat to get to a position where I can start to run the hip down. This would be what I would show you. I don't let him scoop the far leg, so I take it as a drive leg, and I just post my hands above his head. I don't even care about where he goes, because I know the direction he's going is to start to come out from behind me and come up and start to go to my back and things like this. He can't roll me over because he doesn't have a scoop on the far leg. And I'm gonna do this large back step, but I'm not gonna sit to my hip when I do it. So I take a large back step and I come to a position like this where I'm sitting on top of him. So I go here. I then reach for his far knee and I pull it towards me. And now I lift my hip and I throw my knee down to the mat and I get into this position, which is back to that 3/4 mount. I turn my knee excessively into the pocket of his hip. I sag my weight right on the end of his femur. So when he tries to widen his knee to the ceiling, it's super difficult. When he tries to inside elbow escape, it's hard. I can take an elbow down here at his hip so he can't hip escape away. And I take my foot and I search for his bottom leg and I just start to extend it. And you add all this together, and when UFC tries to move and get going here, he's kind of pinned now, and now we can work the upper body grips. So if you're gonna do one thing out of this series, this might be the one to remember. I go here, I'd love to run the hip down, but I'm like, shit, this guy's done a good job. I'm gonna bust my knee if I try to put it on the top hip. I've missed that opportunity. Before he scoops me, I come up, I make a big swinging back step, and I look for his knee. I lift my hip up enough to pull his knee between my hips, and I sag back down. From here, I look to put my knee in the pocket of his hip. I pull the tight waist in, so when he tries to hip escape and do all those type of things, he's in trouble, and now we start to work at passing from here. Get a partner, let's give it a go. What we've been doing is fantastic, assuming that you can get going. But if he gets a scoop on that second leg, you're in some real trouble here. What we know is we're not just going to aggressively turn in to try and pin this guy, because I'm going to put pressure through my knee. I can't say to you guys enough, if you want to have longevity doing, even if you don't want to have longevity doing jiu-jitsu, but you just don't want to get injured in the small amount of time you may do jiu-jitsu, don't just allow your knees to take all the load of the position you're in. So I'm not just going to try and win this position that doesn't really matter just to explode my knee. So just think about that. That's quite important. But the reason I'm 20 years in and touch wood, no major injuries, is there's certain times where you might find you just can't go against the pressure. The guard that he's using is designed to put pressure there. That's why it works. So we've got to think of something else. So we're not just going to aggressively turn in. What we're going to do here, we're going to try and buy ourselves some time. I'd like to go as far crossbody as I can, but I'm not going to put weight into my knees. So I put my overhook in, and I'm just going to lean forward and post on my head. Now you've got to be careful, because he's going to want to start to scoot you up overhead. But I'm going to just put weight into my knee here, and when he tries to scoop me up overhead, it's not that easy for him to put me overhead. So this gives me enough time to now take my hand off the mat. Before, when my head's up, every time I try and reach for his hand, he'll drive me forward, and I'm going to post and fall. So we're going to put a head on the mat so we have a base. And then we're going to look at the reach down here like so. And we're just looking to try and see, he can strong scoop. We're going to take the knuckle line. We're allowed to grab the 4 fingers on the knuckle line, and we're going to strip it down and away. And from there, we're going to start to stand up. And then from here, we can start to look at trying to take our leg down and back and seeing whether we can run down the hip again. If I can do this, fantastic. Or, now that my leg is mobile, I strip this grip free. Now I can start to take big back steps and then start to scoot back in and do the things we looked at before. Okay, so all we're adding is that he's got further down the chain before I could get going, and he's got a complete locked up scoop and a tight waist. I have to put an overhook in, or else I'm going to be in trouble. I'm going to come down here, put my hand on the mat, and I'm trying to stand up, but he's got a good scoop. I reach down here, I strip, and now my leg can get free. Now I could look at the idea of running the hip back down, or coming out of that position and going back into what we looked at before. Let's give this a go. So if you can reach down, if you can post your head for a moment, reach down, take the scoop out of the way, fantastic. Actually, we'll do it on the other side. I prefer to do it this way. So we're here, it's got the tight waist, it's got a scoop. If I can reach down, put a head post in, whiz up, start to strip this and get moving, great. But we're going to assume this time, he's a real pro at this. He's so good at this sweep that there's nothing I can do to get this going. I'm going to get swept. So what I start to do here is I think to myself, well, both his arms are occupied, so the only protection his neck can have to my top hand here really is him tucking his chin. And that's not really going to be enough. So what I'm going to do here is run the risk of being swept, but I'm assuming to myself I'm going to be swept anyway. So I can either let him sweep into a for sure good position, potentially side control, or I can maybe throw in an attack here and see if I can save myself by submitting him or being able to return him to the mat. Okay, so I'm going to bring my head down like we posted on before, except instead of reaching back down here, I'm going to bring my hand in and start to look for his neck. I'm going to run my thumb down the line of his neck. And I can't get my hand in a very deep position for the guillotine here because of the fact that my head is not on the same side as my strangle arm. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to forego being on this knee and fall to a hip. And as I fall to a hip, I'm going to start to keep your legs locked and keep the tight waist. So as I fall down here, I'm going to fall into a position like this. And my hand starts to now be able to get deeper and deeper. Now, as he tries to come up into top position, I can use my guillotine to keep him back on his back. So as UFC comes up here, it's kind of hard for him to come up. And as he opens his legs to try and get up in top position, I'm going to take my knee into the top hip. So even if he does get all the way over, I end up in this position where I have a butterfly hook in. And I've got an arming guillotine and a butterfly hook. And now I'm going to use this to sumigashi him back over. I'm going to compress his head. I'm going to use my knee to turn in and my hook nice and strong, driving off my bottom leg. And I'm going to turn him back to the mat, except now we're past his legs. I can go into my whole anaconda series here, or he's likely to try and wrestle back to his knees, in which case we'll both come over and now we're going to front headlock attacks. So I actually find this is a nice little savior, a little get out of jail free card. If he's done everything right and you're about to get swept. If this is a submission only match and you don't really care about the positioning, you could even just go to this early in the piece. All right, so look what we do. I'm here, my head comes down and I start to catch the neck here. If I can get a good guillotine and start to strangle him and put some heat on him, great. As he starts to come up into top position, I keep turning him over and I look to get my knee to the top hip. All right, you'll find your foot has to come out for him to come up. From here now, I sumigashi him back onto his back. I can go through my attacking series. If he does fire back to his knees, I come with him, and now we just go back into front headlock attacks. Let's give it a go. Be the last thing we do.